Another offseason edition episode of Just Beavin coming your way right now. We did our first mock draft 1.0, not last week, but the week prior, before free agency opened up last week. We have now gotten the results of free agency. There are still some veterans out there that have yet to be signed. They're taking visits this week, but the key cogs of free agency, the meat and potatoes, are off the board for every NFL team. We'll be doing our 2.0 mock draft next week. But we got to recap free agency first. Andy, JP here with you. JP, our first mock draft, you were texting me today, already getting ready for our mock draft next week. Based on free agency a week ago, we're going to have a completely different mock draft for the folks next week based on what we saw in free agency across the league.
Yeah, as I texted you, I was just blown away at how different. I mean, I was 12 picks in when I texted you that, and I mean, I think 8 of the 12 were completely different. And then even prepping for this show, I was like, yeah, wow, this is going to be so drastically different. But yeah, excited to recap all this.
Most definitely the AFC North. This will be free agency and some trades because there were some trades that were made just before the free agency window opened, along with when the free agency window was open and around. We'll start in the AFC North, and we're going to begin with the Baltimore Ravens. The main additions for Baltimore included bringing DeAndre Hopkins on a one-year deal in the $5 to $6 million range, along with keeping key cogs in their offensive line in Ronnie Stanley and Ben Cleveland. Now, JP, in our mock draft, we had Baltimore at the end of the first round going offensive line, in particular a tackle, thinking that they would lose Stanley in free agency. Instead, he sticks around, and DeAndre Hopkins is with a contender after finishing out last season with the Chiefs.
Yeah, so it's actually funny because had I not gone Simmons in our mock draft, I probably would have given them Egbuka. But now that they have Hopkins, I'm going to have to rethink a whole lot of what we're giving them. I mean, even if Hopkins has nothing left in the tank, I think they gave him a one-year deal, so they could still easily go wide receiver there. But yeah, nothing too crazy for Baltimore. Happy they're keeping Stanley though. I do like the Ravens. So.
Not a whole lot changing. Obviously, adding D-Hop. We'll see how that works with Lamar. The Pittsburgh Steelers made a couple of moves, most notably a big trade for DK Metcalf, a second-round pick going back to Seattle. DK getting a 5-year extension worth a grand total of $150 million. They also bring in Darius Slay, who was cut by Philadelphia. Now, in the Beaverfest League, I am the owner of DK Metcalf, and things are interesting right now, and this is something we can talk about. We're going to be talking a lot about what teams have done, also what teams haven't done or necessarily haven't added. JP, the Steelers don't have a quarterback yet, so they get their shiny new receiver to go alongside George Pickens, and they're paying him a ton of money, but we don't know who's going to throw him the football yet.
Yeah, and the simple solution would be bring Russ back. But we saw how that went. They won 9 games, and I really don't think Russ's ceiling gets you any higher than 10 wins, maybe, and you're still sitting on the outside. I also have some criticisms about that DK move. I think you go out and you get DK is essentially the same receiver as George Pickens, and I would actually go as far to say that Pickens is better than Metcalf. I think they do the same thing. I don't remember who it was. I really wish I did, but he said that Pittsburgh has 2 one-trick ponies and they do the same exact trick, and I think that perfectly sums that trade up. But I do like the move to go out and get Darius Slay. They really needed help on the other side of Joey Porter, and whatever Slay's got left in the tank will be enough for them.
Secondary help was much needed. We also had Pittsburgh going with a receiver in the first round of our mock draft. Obviously, that won't be the case now. Yet again, we're 2 for 2 on things that will certainly change. Talk about a team who didn't really do much in terms of bringing in, just keeping their guys around. Cincinnati Bengals are going to have an interesting financial situation on their hands, especially when looking at their defense in the years to come. Massive contracts given out to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They also brought back Mike Gesicki, who was quietly impressive in their pass catching game for the upcoming season in the next 2 years after that. So Joe Burrow's weapons are back, and they got their money, JP. But as I mentioned, all of a sudden their money is stretched very thin. They're going to have to really nail draft picks for the next couple of years and even longer after that.
Yeah, I mean, you nailed it on the head there. They're going to have to hit on just about every single draft pick if they actually want to stay in contention. I can't believe they dished out all that money to T. Higgins. Jamar, I get, and Burrow, obviously, you got to pay him, but giving all that money to a wide receiver, too, is ludicrous. Because even so, I don't think T. Higgins is a top 25 receiver, so paying him like he is one is just not for me.
And from what I saw, it was the highest contract ever given out to a wide receiver 2 in an offense. And yeah, like you said, that money can go elsewhere. You can always draft another receiver. Not saying it's a guarantee that's going to be like Higgins, but you're almost better off taking the risk throwing a first or second round draft pick. You got T. Higgins in the second round of his draft. You're almost better off spending a pick in the first 2 rounds on a receiver, using that money to shore up any needs on defense and the offensive line in the trenches. We always know keeping Joe Burrow protected is extremely important. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. Closing out the AFC North, probably the most boring offseason, not in the AFC, but definitely in this division. The Cleveland Browns, they obviously gave all that money back to Myles Garrett, getting around $40 million a season on his new contract, that being the highlight. Other than that, they've acquired Kenny Pickett, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, and Malik Collins. I totally butchered his last name. I apologize. I know Joe Tryon's a big viewer of ours, but those 3 additions outside of Garrett, I mean, Kenny Pickett's come out and had quotes saying he's ready to compete for the starting job with whoever they bring in. I highly doubt Kenny Pickett's the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns this season, unless there's an injury. We know they have the number 2 pick in the draft. We had them going with Cam Ward in our first mock draft. We'll see how things shift and change about. We are going to implement trades into our draft next week. But other than that, JP, there really isn't a whole lot to be said about what Cleveland did.
Yeah, nothing at all. And it still leaves the door wide open for what they're going to end up doing at number 2, given the fact that, I mean, but I think them going to get Kenny Pickett, though, I kind of contradicting what I said, but I think them going to get Kenny Pickett shows that they're not too secure in taking Shedeur Sanders. I mean, if they're willing to go get Kenny Pickett rather than just draft Shedeur Sanders, I think that says a lot about how they feel about Shedeur.
We head to the AFC South. Big money given out to a couple of remaining Buffalo Bills. Obviously, Josh Allen getting his much-deserved payday after winning the MVP this past season. They also re-up on Khalil Shakir. I'm trying to remember who the other pass catcher was that they brought in. Them being the Bills this past offseason or just a week ago in free agency. I know they brought in another receiver.
Josh Palmer.
Palmer, booyah, right there, right on the tip of my tongue. So Allen's back, much deserved money for him. JP, obviously having Shakir return and get major money as well as huge. Josh Palmer, 3-year, $36 million contract. So getting another new weapon in there. They also get Joey Bosa. There was the big thing of, and we'll talk about the Niners later. They let go of Leonard Floyd in full preparation to bring Joey Bosa aboard to pair with his brother Nick. Instead, Buffalo swoops in at the last minute, gives him a 1-year, $12 million deal, along with Larry Ogunjobi joining him on the defensive side of the football. Greg Rousseau as well getting some money, the other edge rusher for Buffalo. Whole lot of moves, about 50% of them, JP, re-signing, giving extensions, bringing guys back, but some intriguing additions as well for a team that is looking to get over that hump and win the AFC crown.
Yeah, they kept a lot of money in-house with Shakir, Allen, and Russo. They also brought back DeMar Hamlin. So I guess they're not drafted Nick, I guess they're not drafted Nick Manawari as we projected in our draft. Although, we still could go. Doesn't make much sense that they re-signed DeMar Hamlin, but I guess he'd be a good depth piece behind Nick Manawari. But yeah, no, actually solid offseason for Buffalo. It's just so tough because, Josh Allen's worth every single penny, but now you have so much money tied up into one position. It's just like one of those things where it's like, it sucks, but I mean, it's Josh Allen. It's like the Chiefs with Pat Mahomes. I mean, you can give him so much money and tie it all up there, but I mean, it's got to work out somehow.
Yeah, no, and we're going to go through obviously the entire division. Patriots had an interesting run at free agency and in the trade market, but they definitely had the moves that made the most impact in terms of taking care of their guys. We always say it's important to take care of homegrown talent. Miami, kind of a bit. I love this list of names we have here for Miami. They bring in Zach Wilson on a 1-year deal. If you want to call that quarterback insurance for Tua, they've never really. Skylar Thompson has been their backup since he was drafted in the 7th round a few years ago. So getting somewhat of quarterback security for Tua. Alexander Madison, former Bears on the offensive line, James Daniel and Larry Borum, along with Nick Westbrook Akine. Shout out Ty, legend in Tennessee, especially a fantasy legend of having 2 catches and 120 yards and a touchdown, seemingly half of his games this past year. And former Pro Bowl punter Ryan Stonehouse. JP, this, like I said, this is probably the most interesting group of names we have linked to a team here. I don't even know which. This just could be a gloss over team. I don't really know if there's anything that really excites us with Miami.
No, nothing. Just stable guard play with James Daniel. I also forgot Skylar Thompson went to Pittsburgh. So like that completely
Oh,
left my mind until you just said his name. But yeah, it's Zach Wilson. I'm still a Zach Wilson believer. He'll never ever start ever again, but
no.
I love rooting for him. So I mean, but yeah, no, we can gloss over them, go right to the next team.
Big Larry Borum guy as well. Never got his true chance in Chicago. Uh, no, most definitely. He'll rotate in. Good depth piece. Like you added, the Jets have themselves a new quarterback, and it's a guy that you and I are both very, very familiar with, my friend, Mr. Justin Fields. He joins the list of free agents for the Jets along with Brandon Stevens and Josh Myers, the key guys to note. And there's always that famous offseason clip of Fields and rookie minicamp with the Bears talking about Josh Myers, his center at Ohio State, saying that it was one of the quarterbacks coaches or whoever he was talking with saying, "Oh, where did he end up?" He goes, "He went to the wrong team, drafting him to Green Bay." So Fields finally back with his college center. JP, you and I could talk about Justin Fields for a very, very long time. 2 years, $40 million, $30 million guaranteed. After spending last season in Pittsburgh, this is his show. He's the guy, and he gets it right back in a major media market. It'll be interesting to see how he handles the New York media.
Yeah, and you know while you were discussing the Jets, some breaking news from Adam Schefter here. Travis Homer is re-signing with the Bears on a $2 million deal for 1 year. So
Let's go.
just thought I'd break that news that we're bringing back Travis Homer. But yeah, no, I mean Justin Fields. I mean the Jets fans are going to be they're going to go through the all the stages we went through. They're going to get excited. They're going to I think it was you who was like Jets fans are already posting the Ohio State
Yeah.
Clemson throw, and I've seen that throw more times than I could count. Every offseason it was, well, this Justin's in here somewhere, and he's not.
No, he's
I
not.
promise you,
No, he's
he's
not.
not. He's not in there. Jets fans are going to be begging for their 30 million back, and they're not going to get it back. And that team will probably never win more than 8 games. He's fun to watch, but he's also very, very frustrating to watch. And then Brandon Stevens is another move I just thought was hilarious because Ravens fans used to defend him to Earth's end that he was a great CB2. And then the last like 4 games of the season, Ravens Twitter was just crashing out on him about how terrible he was. And of course, it's just such a Jets signing for them. But honestly, I don't like any of the moves that the Jets made here. So I guess Josh Myers for 4.5 million is kind of a steal. I mean, that's not a horrible deal, but
As a Bears
Justin
fan, we're,
Fields is
we're, we're going
terrible,
to
bro.
talk about what we did on the O line. 4.5 for Myers is good.
Yeah, it's a great deal.
I wouldn't have minded that. I know we got our guy. We'll
It's a
talk
great
about Drew
deal. It's a
Dahlman,
great
but
deal.
I would have minded 4.5. Nonetheless, we round out the AFC East with the New England Patriots. I have a big, big note on one of the contracts they give out. I'm sure everyone will know which one. They bring in Matt Collins, Morgan Moses, Clavon Chasen, Milton Williams, Carlton Davis, and former Chicago Bear Kyrus Tonga. $26 million a year for Milton Williams. I mean, not saying Sport Track is the gospel when it comes to contracts. They're off on certain guys. They had Williams around 17, 18 a year. 26? I don't know, man. This feels like a contract where how many years is it for? 3 or 4? Three, four.
Four.
This feels like a
Four.
buyout situation after the second year for me. I mean, he's a great he put up good numbers. He's got good tape, but this is also a deal of it could be a product of the system that you're in. That's a lot of money for a guy who was projected. I mean, I don't know. That's just the one source I go off of for my projected average annual salaries. 26 million is a lot of change, man, for Milton Williams. And I get that if you're a team who's close, a team that's close to contending, something to push over the edge, and you got the money to do it. Feels like the Patriots. I mean, I don't know. They're still in the stages right now. I just don't think they were in the position to make a move. They had the money to make a move like that, but I don't necessarily know if they were in a position to make a move like that. Just want to get that was the big contract. The Williams contract is the one that stood out to me, along with Davis as well. He's still kicking it and putting up productive seasons and earning multi-year contracts.
Yeah, with like you said with Milton Williams, you're betting on he's 20. He's going to turn 26 in a few weeks, so you're betting on that wasn't the best of what we saw. But immediately after at the conclusion of the Super Bowl, I know we talked about Josh Sweat, and our group chat was kind of split on whether we were in on Josh Sweat or out on Josh Sweat. And I was personally out on every single Eagles D lineman just because I'm under the impression that they were products of the system. I
Yeah.
mean, when you're playing next to guys who can get 4 sacks a game, but all of you can do it, I mean, it makes you look 10 times better. 10 times better. You see that a lot in basketball, like the you're putting up numbers because you're playing on a much better team. So you're shooting, 48% from three, and then you finally start getting the ball in your hand more, and you're only shooting 38% from three, just stuff like that. And I'm with you. This looks like a buyout situation at the, they slug it out for 2 years, and going into the third year, they're like, I guess, and then that fourth year, they're cutting or buying him out, whatever's saving them money. I can't imagine this contract will age well at all. But I like the Clavon Chasen deal for them, and Matt
Ton of
Collins.
upside there.
Yeah, a lot of upside. And then the Matt Collins deal. I just think he's a great like role player in the NFL, and they kind of needed
Weird
it.
dude.
And they very weird dude. The barefoot thing, I'll never understand that. But
No.
they need just a big body receiver, and I think he fits that for him. So
Yeah, Matt Collins, notable weird guy. We don't know him personally, obviously, but the walking into a stadium
guy.
barefoot and some of the cost. I get that fashion's a thing in sports. You see it everywhere. It looks like he wears Halloween costumes to games every
Truly.
week, and that's where things are interesting. Hey, that's what floats his boat, man. Not gonna judge too much, but it does seem a bit interesting. Would have been even more interesting if he was a part of this group if Bill Belichick was still coaching the Patriots. I don't know how those two would have necessarily meshed chemistry wise based on Bill's ways, but we head to the AFC West. The defending AFC champions denied of a three-peat. The Kansas City Chiefs have brought some guys back. That's what most of their moves were. They bring in Gardner Minshew. I think that's hilarious. I love that for the Chiefs. He'll have to unfortunately give up 15. He will not be able to wear 15 in Kansas City. I know that's been his number throughout his career. They bring back Kareem Hunt, Hollywood Brown, which as Bears fans, super disappointing. I was hoping they could have made a play at him in free agency, along with Jalen Moore, Trey Smith. He was the big fish in free agency this offseason. He stays with the Chiefs. Nick Bolton and Christian Fulton as well getting back. We mentioned this in our mock draft show, JP. When you are a top three team in football, it's hard to find spots that you need improvement on. You know what works. If it's not broken, don't fix it. You just throw the money that you have back at the same guys who work in the same system that they're used to. Minshew signing, like I said, is fun. But other than that, I'm not surprised Kansas City went out and really just brought back their own guys. They didn't need to go out and bring in anyone else. What they had works, and it's still going to work this year.
Yep, hit it on the head with that one. I just think the Christian Fulton move's a great move. I think it's funny because the last two out of the last three first round corners at the tight end or the tight ends the Titans have taken have left and then become pretty solid starters in the NFL. Dory Jackson went to New York and became a very solid starter, and then Christian Fulton goes to LA and becomes a solid starter. I forgot who the Virginia Tech guy was that they took literally 2 or 3 years ago, but he was injury plagued. He's still no good. But
Edmonds?
Christian Fulton, no, it
No,
was
different Edmonds.
oh man, who was it?
It's going to
I don't
hurt
even
you
know
if you
what
don't know.
I don't know. I'm not going to look it up now. I will when we go to the next team. But yeah, I really like the Christian Fulton deal. And then, like you said, they brought back all their guys. I mean, Trey Smith, that one hurt so bad to see that. I was in shambles over that. But yeah, they keep everything fresh and they pay their guys. Bolton Smith, they bring over more from San Fran. It's a great move. So honestly, typical Chiefs offseason, just a great offseason for them.
Yeah, and the Chargers on the flip side, not a whole lot cooking. They bring in some new names. They bring back an old name, Najee Harris, one of the new faces, fitting pretty well for a John Harbaugh style team. Jim Harbaugh, Jesus, Jim Harbaugh. Mike Williams coming back after spending last year with the Jets and the Steelers. Another tough one. Who is he?
Caleb Farley.
That's right. Yeah. Yep. That would be him. Was on the tip of my tongue as well.
I just couldn't figure it out.
Yeah. Another one though. It's a good point with the Titans tie if you're watching this. Sorry. But we're talking about with the Chargers, Harris, Mike Williams coming back. That's cool. I big Mike Williams guy. It seemed weird not having him in the Chargers uniform last year. So having him back there will probably feel a little bit more right. Khalil Mack getting a 1-year, $18 million deal to stay in Los Angeles. Mekhi Becton, he went late. He didn't go in the first few days of free agency. So the Chargers get him there along with Elijah Molden and Dante Jackson. Najee Harris, not a Steeler anymore, JP. This running back room continues to be weird for Los Angeles, as mentioned, just based on how they run things. Justin Herbert getting an old friend back and Mike Williams. I would still expect them to get another wide receiver in the draft at some point. I can't imagine it being Mike Williams and Ladin Conkey after they lost Josh Palmer to Buffalo. Just your overall thoughts on what LA.
Yeah, no, bringing back Mac was a great move for them. It was a little overpay, but I mean, it's only 1 year, so it'll be off the books quick. Then they go out and bring in another Titan, Elijah Molden. Big Titans guy. But Elijah Molden's a great player. Then they bring in some corner depth with Dante Jackson, great move. And yeah, paying Becton. I didn't think the Chargers were going to be the team to pay him, but they go out and get Becton. Not a bad move at all, especially pairing it with the Najee Harris move that they made previously. I'm a big Najee Harris fan. I'm pro Najee Harris, and so I really hope that he finds some young blood in his tank and has a great season here and really sticks to the Steelers because I'm a big Najee Harris fan. But I've liked the moves they made. Nothing too crazy.
Yeah, nothing flashy. I think it's the best way to put it. Denver going out and taking care of some things as well. Evan Ingram let go by the Jaguars in some shocking fashion. He latches on there. DJ Jones, along with Dre Greenlaw and Talona Hufunga from San Francisco. Some slight moves for Sean Payton entering his third season, JP, at the helm. Leading Denver, this will be Bo Nix's second year. He gets a nice target to throw to out of the tight end slot. I quietly really like what Denver did this offseason, at least in the free agency aspect. Still got to hit the draft, but did we have them going? We had them going wide receiver in our mock. So
Yeah,
I still think that's in play. That's clearly, obviously in play.
Yep.
But the thought of them taking a guy like Colston Loveland from Michigan off the table, Ingram's their guy, and I think that's a fantastic fit.
Yeah, no, I think it's a perfect fit. You get essentially a wide receiver who plays tight end, one of the best run after catch tight ends in the entire league. Ingram's a stud, climbs the ladder to go get a bunch of jump balls too. I'm a big Ingram fan. And yeah, like you mentioned, quietly just one of the best off seasons. And I've liked every move they've made. They got Dre Greenlaw for relatively cheap. I think he's like the 14th or 12th highest paid linebacker now. And when he came back, he still played good. He still played like he was a top 10 linebacker. That was a great deal. Now, Hufanga, I think, is a little bit overrated, but he's still good for what they're paying him. They didn't overpay anybody. They made great move after great move. And I think one of the things with the Broncos is they always go through the offseason trying to win games. There's never been a time I've looked at the Broncos and been like, yep, this team's openly tanking. They always, I feel like, have solid off seasons, whether it's retaining their own guys through the draft, although they've missed on a lot of first round picks. But through the draft or through free agency, they're always making moves to go and win, and I really like that. And I really like this offseason for Sean Payton and the Broncos.
I feel like this is a team that a lot of people will be able to pull for coming up this year, especially if they find themselves in a wild card situation. Fans don't have their teams in the playoffs. Everyone looks for a cool story to cheer for. I feel like Denver can be that team that a lot of America latches onto out of the AFC. Before we get to the AFC South, the AFC West, the Raiders getting interesting, making some moves. Geno Smith acquired in a trade with Seattle. Obviously, plenty to talk about. The quarterback carousel. You got Mustard going there along with Kappa. Max Crosby getting a bag off the edge along with Malcolm Kuntz, who I wrote up on him as a profile for the Bears, and he was projected at one point to get 18 to 20 million, and he ends up with 12 because he didn't play this past year. It's the injuries that would kept him off the field this past year. That'll be, I always say the word interesting, but it will be interesting on his end to see if that investment is worth it. He's a guy who's got high upside, but you just don't know how he's going to come back from his injury. I want to say it was Achilles. I could be totally.
I believe it was Achilles.
Yeah, he's a guy who has a lot of upside. And then you get Stokes coming over from Green Bay and Jeremy Chin as well in the secondary. I'm still trying to make sense of this Las Vegas team. I know Pete Carroll's here, so the Geno Smith acquisition makes sense coming over from Seattle. I just am still trying to make sense of everything going on in Vegas. I still feel like I can't take them seriously.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat as you. I think it's just the logo. Like I have it written into my brain that the Raiders just aren't good. Yeah, they're just not good at football. And even so, like they go out and make all these moves, and like I'm still looking around, and I'm like, okay, like they got to do something still. They got to. Right. I don't think Chip Kelly's going to be able to do the job. He was a horrible play caller his last two stints in the NFL. I don't know what people think has changed. He was bad at UCLA, and then he gets gifted a great offense at Ohio State. I think this is going to be a mega flop. But I mean, I still like the moves they made. I'm pro Geno Smith. I'm pro Mostert because I have him in fantasy. He's got a lot of
I
cred
was like,
left
I
on
knew I
him.
read that wrong. Raheem Mostert, autocorrect. Gotta love that. Yes,
Oh
Raheem
no, no,
Mostert getting added.
that's not autocorrect. We had
Oh, you
a
did that on
there's
purpose?
oh yeah, there's this account that I followed for a long time, me and Ty, and it's Raheem Mustard. It's but
Oh,
just I me and Ty just
I
call him
ran with it,
Mustard
man. I
now.
read through this list before and I didn't think twice about it. Yes, Raheem Mostert. And I love the people online saying, oh, well, clearly Ashton Genty's going to be off the board for the Raiders at 6. You know, they brought in Raheem Mostert on a 1-year deal. I don't know. That's another thing, dude. That pick that we get to continually make in our mock drafts, I have not a clue what Vegas wants to do.
I have no idea. I have no idea. Well, because like I said earlier when I was going through it, I was like, okay, they could go edge. They could take Carter. Yes, I had Carter fall that low. But then I'm like, they just spent a first on Tyree Wilson 2 years ago. Like they're not already throwing the towel in. They just paid Crosby. They have Kuntz. They're not just giving up on Wilson to draft Carter. It just doesn't make sense. And so like I genuinely don't have a clue. I mean, do they overdraft one of the corners? Doubtful.
Right.
Do they go with Luther Burden or someone that high or Tet? Maybe
Tet would be. Did we have Tet go? No, we had Tet going to Jackson.
at 5. Yep.
So, which could still very much be in play. The
Yep.
5-6 slots, no clue.
It's
That
so
free
tough
agency
because
didn't
they
help
they
there.
they need a lot. No, they because they didn't
Yeah,
do enough, but they did a lot. Well, the Jags did nothing, as we'll
yeah,
get to, but
we'll get to
the
that.
Raiders
Yeah,
did a lot, but not enough. But yeah, no, I like the Kuntz deal. I like the Jeremy Chin deal. And then I just thought it was funny to talk about Eric Stokes, former Packers first rounder. Brian Gutekunst can't hit on squat in the first
no,
round. Probably the best second, third, fourth round GM in the league, but gosh, can he not hit in the first round?
just got to trade back, stockpile those day 2 and early day 3 picks in Green Bay. We'll get to the NFC after our intermission, which will follow the AFC South here. The Houston Texans. We have a in division trade. Jaguars sending Christian Kirk to Houston. The Texans also pick up Braxton Berrios, Watson, Laken Tomlinson, and we talked about this earlier today in our group chat. 30 million bones a season on a new contract for Derek Stingley. JP, I know you absolutely dislike that contract. And Kirk obviously being thrown in with Houston. You look at their receiving room. Diggs is still a free agent. Dell's out for the season. Nico Collins coming off an injury last year. He finished the year on the field with the team. He'll be at full health, but right now it's going to be Collins and it's going to be Kirk and whoever they add in the draft or later in free agency. It's a really weird offseason for a team that should be trying to make further strides in a division that is extremely winnable for them and a team that should be looking to do more than just make the playoffs.
Yeah, no, it actually was a very, very quiet offseason, especially because they still have Stroud on that rookie deal. I can't believe they're not going all in right now. I get last offseason they did go pretty hard with DeAndre Hunter. I definitely did not say that right. Daniil Hunter.
Daniil Hunter.
And yeah, Daniil
March
Hunter.
Madness
DeAndre
is
Hunter's
coming up later in the
yeah,
week, JP.
I'm all in the basketball. The Cavs, DeAndre Hunter is not now playing for the Texans. But yeah, I mean, you can see that they don't have a lot of trust in this wide receiver core. I mean, not that Braxton Berrios is a starter or Justin Watson is a starter, but they still go out and get two like solid depth pieces there, I guess. And then yeah, the Kirk deal. That was a great move for them. I mean, Kirk, we've seen what Kirk can do as the wide receiver, one in an offense. He was a little disappointing last year, but he was kind of on and off the field with injuries and whatnot. So I think he'll bounce back. But that Derek Stingley deal, he's making $11 million more a season than Jalen Johnson, and they're in the
Our guy.
same exact ballpark. I understand that Derek Stingley just led the league in yards allowed per catch or whatever. But I mean, come on, 30 million for a corner.
Crazy.
When is that's absolutely insane. I mean, just I don't even know I guess the Rams, was Jalen Ramsey even the best corner in the league when they won at that point, or was he past it? My
He
point
may have been the
is
best corner in the league when he got the contract, but I don't think he was the best corner in the league when they won the Super Bowl.
and that's kind of my point here is when's the last time the best corner in the league was on the team that won the Super Bowl? You could make your arguments for Snead a couple of years ago, but I don't think anyone would agree he was the best in the league. I don't think anyone's going to say that Darius Slay was the best, or I'm sure the brainwash now people would say Quinyon Mitchell with the recency bias would say he's a top 3 corner in the league or something
Right.
ridiculous like that. But my point being is $30 million to a corner in about 3 or 4 years, they're going to be in some bad cap situation and they're going to be winning 10 games every year, and it's going to be ugly.
Could be New Orleans Saints esque with their cap situation. As we move on to the Colts, we'll get a quarterback battle in Indy this year out of camp. Daniel Jones, a 1-year contract. He'll get to compete with Anthony Richardson, or better known as Tony Dix, for Mr. Jake Sapparo. Charvarius Ward and Khalil Herbert, very great Khalil Herbert as well, joining the Colts. Pretty lackluster offseason in terms of the free agent market for Indy JP. The real discussion revolves around the quarterback battle of Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson. Without knowing anything, who would you favor right now? And those two going head to head.
Honestly, I think it's gonna be crazy to say, but I really do think Daniel Jones is probably gonna be the starter at least headed into week one.
I
I
agree.
just think that I just think they're just gonna want to go with like an actual veteran, like not a child. And Anthony Richardson hasn't proven that he's matured enough to be a starter in the league. I think those on-field temper tantrums, like you lose a locker room like that, and it's really hard to gain them back because I mean I'm sure now even going into this year, it's like when excuse my French, but when shit gets tough, like is he just going to turn his
Yeah.
head and like whine about it? And Daniel Jones is now playing for his NFL career, and so I'm not saying Daniel Jones is great or anything, but he might look a little better behind a real team here. The one thing I will say though is Shane Steichen will be an offensive coordinator somewhere next year, but he's
This
not
will be
going to
his last
survive
year.
another. Yeah, he's not surviving after this year. I just don't think the team's good enough. I mean, they have that team is pretty bad. That's a bad team outside the offensive line. So
I know we're getting to the NFC later, but you bring up Shane Steichen. I'm going to pitch you a question on his coordinator counterpart. Not, I shouldn't say counterpart, his fellow coordinator who got a head coaching job in that same offseason stint, that offseason coaching cycle. Jonathan Gannon, is he in a similar position?
yeah, I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah.
So
Interesting. Interesting. So the Colts don't make a lot of moves. This is the boringest offseason we're about to present to you in the entire AFC, potentially the entire league. The Jaguars added De'Ami Brown. 1 year deal in the $10 to $12 million range. I
that's
don't.
it.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
That's it.
It's De'Ami Brown, who De'Ami Brown's great and all. That's a lot of money. That's so one. I know we said 1 year deals don't mean anything, especially when you don't add anything else. It's not going to hurt your cap, but it's a lot of money for a guy who really hasn't done a whole lot in his NFL career. Trevor Lawrence has a new guy to throw the football to, JP. I literally don't think we can analyze this at all. They got De'Ami Brown.
No,
That's it.
when I saw that, all I thought was, okay, they're mad that they paid Gabe Davis that much money, and now they need a new deep threat. That was literally all. I had nothing to make of it. The only reason I even included it on our list was because I kind of wanted the Bears to go out and get him to be our deep threat. But
I like that too, actually.
I was not paying him that much money.
No, not even on a 1 year deal. No.
No, doesn't matter. Nope, not getting that
Is it
money.
crazy to say I would have given him half that?
Yeah, I know. I would have done the same exact thing. Five
Yeah.
mil. What do you get? 10
Five
mil,
to
right?
10. It was 10 to 12. I don't know what the exact. I
Okay,
just
so
remember
yeah, I
seeing
would have given him
five to
five to
six.
seven. Yeah,
Yeah, fine.
5 to 7.
If you
But
would have told me Bears signed
well,
De'Ami Brown 1 year, $5 to $7 million, I'd been like, cool, okay, sure, makes sense. 10,
Joey
12.
Bosa is getting paid the same that De'Ami Brown's getting paid. So take that extra
De'Ami Brown
money.
will probably play more games though.
That part is true.
So
That part is
so we'll
best
see.
ability is availability.
Always 100%. We rounded out the AFC South and the AFC as a whole with the Tennessee Titans. We've shouted them out already a couple of times. A lot of tie shoutouts here on this episode. Dan Moore, I believe he got a ton of money. Like
He got
probably
82 million with 50 million guaranteed.
whoa, that's like not good for Dan Moore. That's a lot of money. And along, they did get Kevin Zietler, who we really liked as a
It's a
Bears
great move. That's a great move.
profile guy originally. They released a Woozy and then no quarterback. They didn't touch the quarterback position. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is still in play. They're not really going to draft a quarterback. I mean, it's tough. This is another one where we have no idea. And they hold the top pick of the draft.
This is the first time all offseason in any mock I've done where I gave them Cam Ward. This is the first time today that I've given
like
them Cam
what
Ward.
else, right?
I have no clue. Yeah, and then they go out and they I mean try to build the offensive line. The Dan Moore contract. I texted Ty. I said this is the worst contract in all of free agency. Maybe up there in the top 10 in free agency history. He just led the league in sacks allowed, and they paid him $50 million guaranteed. I could not believe that when I saw it. I was sitting there. I think I had just gotten out of the shower, and I was sitting there, and it happened, and I'm like, okay, this is a gag. This is a
Dan
gag.
Moore.
This is a gag. And then 2 minutes later, it's like everywhere. I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? And then I just think it's such. Tennessee is so directionless since they got rid of Vrabel. But yeah, no, the Zietler move was awesome. He's a stud, and he's going to be very, very solid. That Dan Moore move, the only pro I can take away from it is now they get to move Latham back to his actual position, which I want to say is left tackle. and Moore's going to play right
They
tackle.
gave
I
Moore
really
all
hope
that
that's
money to play
correct.
right tackle.
Yeah, I
Oh
believe so.
no.
Wherever Latham played last year, he's going back to his original position, which is the opposite of where he's playing. I don't remember if he was left and then they moved him to right, now he's going to left, or if he was,
Jeez.
vice versa. So
Figure it out, Tennessee. It's a great place to have a team as well. Just brutal execution. We'll take our quick intermission here. We'll be back very momentarily for the NFC recap right here on the Just Beavin podcast, free agency offseason edition. To the NFC we go, and to the NFC North we go. Even more important. And we're going to start with the most important order of business, our Chicago Bears. My goodness, the additions, both through trading and the free agent market. Jonah Jackson, Joe Thuney, Drew Dahlman, Brady Jarrett, Deo Odinbinho, and Olamide Zaccheaus. Definitely said Deo's last name wrong. That's going to take some time to get used to. JP, so many emotions, reactions. I don't know if you caught this in our Bears chat. There's a lot going on Monday. I had just gotten off a flight in Phoenix, so I was getting all the news. And the one comment I made that I feel is true with our guy Ryan Poles. I don't know where I don't know where you're at now on Ryan Poles. I'm for Ryan Poles. I think he's fine. But I feel like for every good move that he makes an equally confusing one. And I feel like that rings true with what he did through trades and free agency this year. I don't know where you want to start. I'll give you the keys to the car here when unpacking all the additions at the Bears.
yeah, I don't know what to think about Ryan Poles. I think he's in the better half of the league of GMs, but I don't know if he's like a 5-year extension. I get he's on the same timeline as Ben Johnson, but I mean that was rich regardless. I mean I don't think he had done anything besides the trade for DJ Moore that had really made me have a whole lot of faith in him. Um, but yeah, let's kick it off. I think people are sleeping, and I can't even believe I'm going to say this, but I think people are sleeping on the Joe Tooney deal just because he had such a bad Super Bowl because he was playing out of position. I don't
Yeah.
think people are comprehending that he's undersized for a tackle, so of course he's getting thrown around by 6'5" monsters on that Philly line. We're going to move him back inside, and he's going to resume his reign as a top 3 guard in the league. The Dalman thing, that's the one where I'm like, it's just a lot of money,
We talked about
and I
Josh
think it's
Myers.
yes, and
We're giving
I
him an
just think
extra
it's
10 million.
and I get he's 26, so I really hope he
Yeah.
continues. Like if he takes another step, I'm good with it. Just another step to make himself a solidified top, 5, 6, 7 center in the league. But sitting around that 10 range with what we're paying him, he has to take another step, given the fact that he's only 26. Uh, and then I think the best move that he made all offseason, I mean, Olamide Zaccheaus, you can write us in as Super Bowl favorites at this point. I mean, when I saw that happen, I knew we were good to go. But no, in all seriousness, the Grady Jarrett move, I hope he's got something left in the tank. I despised that move. I
Yeah.
was not pro Grady Jarrett move. I thought that was a lot of money for a guy who has had trouble staying on the field, and when he has been lackluster. The Jonah Jackson move, I'm okay with as time has gone on. I've
We hated
grown.
it when it
We didn't get
when it broke.
Yep,
Yeah.
and we didn't give up a whole lot for him. I also thought he was getting a lot more on that contract than what he is getting, although he's still getting a lot of money. Um, but if he can regain some of his Lions form, I think that'd be a brilliant move. And then, the Deo Oyeingbo move. He's
We'll just
he's
call him
young and he's a
Deo.
great and he's a great run defender, and we need help stopping the run. The one thing I am excited for is maybe we can move Jarrett and or Dexter to edge in certain pass rush situations,
Yep.
because that could be a lot of fun. Because Javon Dexter is a freaking beast, and he's only getting better. That's where I get really intrigued with the Grady Jarrett move, and maybe that's just what Grady Jarrett also needed down in Atlanta. Another good tackle to play next to him to really elevate his game. And then this could also in turn elevate Dexter. So I hated it, but now I've come to appreciate it a little more. I'm leaning against the Jarrett move, but it could get really exciting in Chicago this year. It already is exciting.
It is. It is, dude. I agree with everything you said on the O line. My focus is mainly on the D line. I was higher on Jarrett when it first broke than most, but then I did see his pass rush win rate was at 9% this past year. That's not good. I saw that and I was not thrilled with that. So that was not good. But I like that was immediately then my head went to okay, he's going to get on the inside. We get Jervon Dexter out on the outside for some more pass rushing reps. That was the thought there. That was the hope. Deo, listen, I get the upside. I get that he was top 10 in QB hurries last year. I get that he's a freak athlete and that he could thrive in a Dennis Allen system. Dude, $16 million per
Little
season.
rich,
It's a
little
lot of money.
rich.
I
It's a
remember
lot of
I
money.
sent that signing into our group chat before the money broke. And I was like, great, this guy, based on what I know about him, could be our rotational guy. Give him a little bit of money. And then I remember I texted in all caps, we gave this guy $16 million. Dude, we're gonna
Very
talk about
reminiscent of that Larry Ogunjobi
yes.
Ogunjobi deal that fell through because of the failed physical.
We're gonna talk about Josh Sweat in a little bit. That is, I like that comparison. Josh Sweat got 19, and we gave Deo 16. At first, I was like, you know what? I get it. Sweat's gonna get in the 20s. And when I saw he got 19, I got a little hesitant. Oh, listen, I like him as an athlete. I think he could be great, but I don't love the 16 million for upside. I like money like that for what we know, not for what we don't know. I feel like his market. I know his market was supposed to be this high. I saw someone say, "Oh, he could get anywhere in the 18 to 20." Whatever GM would have given him 18 to 20 million a season deserves to get fired. No disrespect to
Wouldn't
him.
have been a GM much longer.
Yeah. So when I think upside, I probably wouldn't have given Deo more than 12. But if that's what his market was, then I mean, I guess there's not much you can do about it. I mean, the old line is great, man. We're ready to roll. Like, this is Caleb Williams. We got him. He'll be protected this year. He,
Yeah.
he's he's not going to be sacked 68 times like he was a year ago. I'll tell you that for sure. We just got to hope guys stay healthy. Last thing for the Bears. Obviously, we're going to talk more about the Bears than anyone else. This solidifies, barring the draft, which we could go project tackle first round or second round. This solidifies that Braxton Jones should be the starting left tackle this year. Your thoughts on it?
Yeah, and I think I even saw something where Poll says that they're committed to Braxton Jones being the starter. I wouldn't even be shocked that if they don't even address the position through the draft. I bet they go guard in the draft rather than a tackle or a guy who can play swing. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I really think they're going to commit to Braxton Jones long term, which we've had this debate a lot in our Bears group chat. Not pro Braxton Jones. I think he's a fine tackle. I think he's just good.
But is
But
he
I
gonna
think
is he worthy of franchise left tackle money? That's the
no,
question we're gonna run into.
I think that's the problem. Now, if he doesn't want franchise left tackle money, then I think it's better to have five good guys than three great guys and two horrible players.
Yeah,
So if
some
he's
smart
willing to
guy.
take a team friendly contract, then it's much better than going out and overpaying someone if we're not even because I mean, who knows if Darnell Wright breaks out, we're gonna have to pay him. That's a
Yeah,
big if. But
that's a
I
good
mean, if
point.
Darnell Wright breaks out, we're gonna have to pay him. And Braxton Jones would be a fine left tackle, but yeah, no, it really wouldn't shock me if we do end up overpaying him though. The way Poles talks about him, it's like it's his little baby. So
It's scary. He's kind of like driving up the market without meaning to drive up the market for
yeah.
Braxton Jones. But hey, I'm gonna say this. I know guys, big media personalities like Big Cat, he always likes to say I'm staying 6 out of 10. Not getting too high, not getting too low, but man, I'm pumped. It's hard not to be.
Oh, I'm
Like,
pumped.
how
I'm
how is
pumped.
how can you
Back to
just
back to
be
back
mad?
offseason champs, dude.
Dude, this is let's roll, man. Let's get going here.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is this could
This
be
is fun. This could
this
be
could be
really
really
fun.
exciting. But you're gonna learn another team in the division made a lot of moves as well. And this division is the best in football. So it's not gonna come easy. Ben Johnson, dude, but he's talking at that press conference. Ryan Poles giving that smirk. I was
Fires me
Ryan
up,
Poles
bro. It
too.
fires me up.
Unreal.
Fires me
This
up.
is this is our world. I know. And the worst part is this is going to be on the internet too, so everyone's going to like have clip our reactions to this, and I'm sure this will age well. But from our Bears to the arch rival Green Bay Packers, Packers didn't do a whole lot. They brought in Aaron Banks, one of the premier guards in the free agent market, 4 years, around 80 million bones, and Nate Hobbs as well in the secondary. I believe you really liked the Nate Hobbs signing, didn't you? Or was that a different guy in this division? Was that
Uh, yeah, no, that was not Nate Hobbs.
okay?
I am anti Nate Hobbs.
So you like that for us?
I like that for us is what I
Yeah.
like about it. The Aaron Banks move was a good move.
Mm,
I like that move. But Nate Hobbs, I don't know how he's getting paid that much money. Quite frankly, I don't think Nate Hobbs is that great. But it's just typical Brian Gutekunst. You know, he makes mind-boggling moves for every. It's like you said with Poles. For every two good moves he makes, he just makes a puzzling, like dumb move. I don't think Nate Hobbs is ever going to earn that contract at all. But I guess if there was a best move he made, it was re-signing Brandon McManus, who was great when
yeah.
they needed him at the end of the year. So I mean, whatever. There's your two good Brian Gutekunst moves, and then paying Nate Hobbs, in my opinion, was horrible. So
Such a fun name to say as well, for the Packers. And once again, they're a team. I mean, we're not going to get into like predicting standings, but I mean, they could either finish, for me, they could either finish second or they could finish last. Like
yeah,
it's,
in the
I don't
same
know how
exact
to, I
boat.
don't know how to read them right now. I mean, we're
I don't know
hoping
how
that
to
we
read the
finish
whole
last.
division.
Yeah, the 1 through 4 will be interesting and to try and figure that out. The Lions are the other team in the division that really didn't do much. They brought in DJ Reed though. That's something to note. That's super important. Mostly other than that, they had their guys under contract. So a lot of it was minor re-signings like Dan Skipper, Tim Patrick, Marcus Davenport, who you and I both really, really liked as a potential
Yeah,
projects, rotational edge for the Bears. I don't think Davenport got any money. I think he got less than 4 million
he
for
did.
one
I think he
year.
got 4.5, literally.
Oh, geez, yeah, that would have been great. But I mean, it's fine. That's what I mean, Detroit's great. They're a similar. I wouldn't put them in the same tier necessarily as a Chiefs or an Eagles. Of there are not a lot of holes in the roster. There aren't, but I still feel like there are ways they could improve on like the other two teams, like where it would be easier for Detroit to find ways to improve. Once again, they like their system. The big focus this year, the big emphasis will be on the new coordinators for Dan Campbell. Losing Ben Johnson to the Bears, losing Aaron Glenn to the Jets. That's going to be the big emphasis is seeing the over change in the turn on the coaching staff rather than what they're bringing in personnel wise. But DJ Reed's a good guy to have in that second.
Yeah, when that deal got announced, and Drew told me about it. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And I remember my phone was charging in a different room, and he's like, "Yep." I was like, "Did you tell the group chat?" And he's like, "Yep." He's like, "Jake's crashing out," and I was like, "Yeah, I would be too. This is unbelievable because I DJ Reed's a great player, and it's so annoying because right as we start to get good, the division is just so loaded, and we're going to talk about him here in a second. But I mean, the Vikings killed it, and
Dude,
the
yeah.
Lions brought back like good players, like that Davenport deal. It's only a 1 year kind of prove it deal, but it's still a great deal for a year. Then they re-signed Derek Barnes, who I'm a big fan of, and then yeah, the DJ Reed move. It's so tough being in the NFC North, man. Best division of football right now.
It's a blessing and a curse to say that. The Vikings, the really major loss was Sam Darnold. We'll talk about where he landed. They brought back Aaron Jones. You got Harrison Smith coming back, Byron Murphy. They upgraded big time, similar to what the Bears did in the trenches. Will Fries, Javon Hargrave, Jonathan Allen. They brought in Jordan Mason and gave him a 2 year, $10 million contract to go alongside with Jones. So they got their running back room ready to roll. They brought in two key pieces for the defensive line, upgrading on the interior of the offensive line as well. Harrison Smith sticking around. They had a good offseason too. It's hard to say who had the best free agency cycle between the Bears and the Vikings in this year. We're biased, so we'll probably still lean with the Bears, but it's hard to discredit what Minnesota did. Their front office is doing a lot of things right as well.
Yeah, that front seven is horrifying with Van Ginkel, Grenard, Hargrave, and Allen. That's a great front seven. I know their linebackers are a little weak, but I mean, who cares when those four are rushing you? The another move I like that they made was bringing in Isaiah Rodgers over from Philly. I thought was a solid signing for them. And then yeah, I mean we were between all offseason, Dalman or Kelly. If it wasn't Dalman, then give Kelly the
I was
two
trying to
year
think back
deal.
Kelly too.
And
Yeah,
that's exactly what they did is they gave Kelly that 2 year deal. And so I mean they're protecting JJ. And if it's maybe it's Rodgers, I don't think it'll be Rodgers, but I mean there's still
the
speculation out
prophecy.
there.
Come on.
Yeah, but there's still speculation. But I mean, they're investing to protect JJ. They have two great young receivers and the best receiver in football, obviously. And then they got Hawk. They re-signed Aaron Jones, as you talked about. They go out and trade for Jordan Mason for a little bit of insurance at the running back position. Yeah, no, they had a great free agency, man. It is really tough to say. If I wasn't a Bears fan and was like a Steelers fan, I honestly would probably say the Vikings had a better offseason than or free agency than us. But yeah, no, it's gonna be hopefully JJ's a stinker, because otherwise this division is gonna be hell.
Yeah, and it's going to be him. Like I said, unless it's Rodgers, it's got to be him because There quite literally isn't another option. They're going to have to throw him into the fire, and it is what it is. NFC North, you're going to get more out of that division out of us than any other division. NFC South was rather quiet this offseason, at least in the free agency cycle. Buccaneers, there's a lot of bringing back their own guys. Chris Godwin, along with Hassan Reddick, Sterling Shepard back there as well. Levante David on a 1-year deal. Kyle Trask returning as the backup, and our very good friend Kendall Vildor now joining the secondary in Tampa after spending the last couple of seasons in Detroit. This is once again JP, pretty typical of Tampa. They like to make a lot of their splashes in the draft. They pride themselves in drafting more than anything. It really does feel right to see Chris Godwin still in Tampa. I know there were, rumors about New England and other teams involved, but it really makes sense for him to stick around there. Bringing in Reddick, though, Hassan Reddick, he's a super intriguing guy who held out of his contract, a lot of problems, dealing with that. Hopefully Tampa can get him on the field because I like watching him play football. But I wrote about him as a potential target for the Bears, but the big turnoff with him obviously is all of his issues that, you don't, it's not necessarily a guy you're always signing up to bring into your locker room, not knowing, you know, everything that's gone on with contract disputes in the past. But obviously you got to sit down with the guy to agree to a contract with him in free agency. They appear to like what they have, and it looks like everything will be all right. But for Tampa, nothing huge, really, just taking care of, keeping guys in house.
Yeah, it's all about that Reddick deal, like you said. Are you getting the double-digit sack guy between Carolina and Philly, or are you getting a disgruntled 30-year-old who realizes he's only on a 1-year deal? Uh, the other move, or the other move I wanted to talk about, was just the fact that they didn't go out and get another linebacker. I know when we did our mock draft, I talked about Jahad Campbell going
Yep.
there. And Levante David only having one more year, and exactly, he comes back, signs a 1-year deal. I'd imagine he hangs it up at the end of this year, and they're going to need someone to take the reins from him. And so I'm going to parade that Jahad Campbell take around until it doesn't happen. So, but yeah, that Hassan Reddick deal is really the only one to talk about. Oh, sorry, I did forget. I think Chris Godwin was heavily overpaid for a guy who's coming
What
off a
did he
severe
get? I
injury.
forgot.
I think it's 44 mils guaranteed, 66
Eh,
potentially total. Yeah,
yeah.
for a guy coming off a severe
Was it
injury,
three
he's 30
years?
years. Yeah, it's 3 years. He's
Yikes.
30 now. I'm sure there's a way out of it after 2 years, but that's a lot of money to give to a guy coming off a severe injury. But like you mentioned, it is the correct place to see Chris Godwin. I really didn't want to see him anywhere else. Him and Mike Evans just are such Buccaneers. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah.
Feels right seeing Baker throw him the football. And to what it's worth, that was kind of the market, it seemed, for Godwin. And you knew he probably was going to be heavily overpaid because this was such a weak top end free agent class at the wide receiver position. So that definitely adds up too. Atlanta, pretty boring. They re-up Jake Matthews and they bring in Leonard Floyd, who was cut by the 49ers. They do lose Grady Jarrett and Drew Dahlman to the Bears. I got nothing here really, JP. They addressed an edge spot that we talked about it in our mock draft, though. Desperately need help out there. We had them taking, I think it was Mike Green. I think you had them taking Mike Green.
Yep, Mike Green.
And Matthews is another one of those guys, just been a franchise cornerstone in Atlanta, what he could bring at the offensive line. So it makes sense. They didn't really do anything crazy. They addressed a couple of needs that they needed to.
Yeah, I think all this does is open the door now for they're going either edge or tackle. I think this just opens the door for Walter Nolan or Kenneth Grant to end up in Atlanta.
Yeah, there you go. Saints give Jawan Johnson quite a few dollars at the tight end spot. I believe it was 3 years in the $30 million range total. They bring back Chase Young and Justin Reed as well as their additions. I forgot the terms of the Chase Young deal, but it seemed that he was liked in New Orleans this past year. Oh boy,
A
what were the
horrible
terms?
deal.
Oh, what were
Horrible
the
deal. They
terms?
gave him 51 guaranteed and 57 potential.
Jeez, for three?
Yeah.
Okay, brutal. The Jawan
He had
Johnson
five he
deal
had
was
five
bad
sacks
too.
last year. He played 17 games, he had 5 sacks, and they gave him $51 million.
And they're
He's
also
nothing but
then
he's a name at this point. And they're running it back with Cam Jordan.
yeah, and they're banking on a new scheme coming in defensively as well. Just yeah, and like I said, Juwan Johnson, fine player. He's known throughout Beaverfest as putting up some occasional big games, but 30 million total. I don't think he's that kind of guy. So, and people wonder why the Saints are in cap hell all the time.
Yeah.
It's because of stuff like this. Just boring. The NFC South is probably the most boring division that we got here in free agency. We're flying through.
Them both the Souths, the NFC and the AFC South are so boring. The team,
Yeah,
they're just I don't know. You said it, they're boring. They're just
margin
boring. There's nothing
margin
ever happening.
Marginal moves. That's it. I think the Panthers have the most exciting free agency class to talk about here. With Rico Dowdle coming in from Carolina or from Dallas, they did lose another guy as well coming in, and they let go of Miles Sanders. Trayshawn Wharton coming in from Kansas City, Bobby Brown, J.C. Horn getting a new contract, which is very justified, and Trayvon Mourning as well entering that defensive unit. We actually have a little stuff to talk about here with the Panthers, JP, and we brought them up in our mock draft, obviously having the eighth pick. Not really knowing what they're going to do. Unfortunately, they make additions here, but I don't necessarily know if this helps us decide where they're going at eight, which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, I think this kind of rule. Well, first of all, the contracts. They gave a lot of money to Tershawn Wharton and a lot of money to Bobby Brown, who I mean they're both fine as rotational pieces, and I guess like as your number two, like you could do better, but I mean they gave Wharton a lot of money for not having, or I guess he'll be playing next to Derek Brown, which will be fine. But paying Brown and Wharton that much, I guess Brown's coming off that injury though. I don't know. It was just confusing. And then the other one, which was puzzling to me, is how can you give J.C. Horn that much money when he doesn't even play half the year? It's just mind boggling. I get you're paying for like an all pro talent, but if he doesn't play, I don't know how they couldn't knock a few dollars off that. That was mind boggling. But I think that Horn contract pretty much signifies that they're not going to go corner at eight, like some people have assumed. And they also brought in Mike Jackson. Uh, they also signed Trevon Morig at the safety position. So exactly like you said, I think this has clarified nothing for us
Nothing. Mike
because
Jackson sounds like a made up player.
I could sit here all day and say, well, they did this, so they're not doing this, but
It's
they're
like, yeah,
still
we already knew
they
they
got to
weren't
make a
doing
pick.
that. Yeah,
They
like
got to make a pick. So it's like I have no clue. I think the door's wide open for Edge. They're obviously
we
not
had them
taking.
going edge in our first draft.
Yeah, they're obviously not taking Mason Graham if he falls there because they decided to give every penny they have to Tershawn Wharton and Bobby Brown. So they're not doing that. But I will say for what they ended up paying Rico Dowdle, I don't think it's that was a horrible deal. It's a 1 year, $6 million deal to come in and rotate with Chuba Hubbard. That was a steal for them. I can't believe the Cowboys didn't fuck that up, which we'll get to that team later. What a crapshoot of an organization.
Shout out Jack and Matt. They were crashing out all week
Yeah.
over what seemed like the smallest things, but they were very justifiable crash outs based on what they had done. And speaking of them, we're going to get to the NFC East now, but we'll begin with the defending Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles. Lots to unpack here. Dorian Thompson-Robinson coming in that trade with Kenny Pickett. I feel like that makes a lot more sense for the system they run, having a guy who's more of a mobile quarterback like DTR working behind Jalen Hurts. They gave Saquon Barkley ridiculous money. A.J. Dillon joining the running back room. That could be fun. It's one of those. This is respect to A.J. Dillon, but it's you see the record player out on the curb, broken, but could be fun to fix. That might be the description I have for A.J. Dillon. It's about health for him more than anything. He's had a tough
Yeah.
time staying on the field. Lane Johnson restructured his contract today. And despite losing, we talked to all the guys Philly has lost. They've regained some players, smaller deals, guys who might not be as well known. We both really love Azeez Ojulari. He was added today, an edge rusher, 1 year, $4 million. That's pennies. And if he stays healthy, he's been hurt the last 3 years. He could be really, really good. Josh Uche being brought in as an edge as well. Zach Bond, guy in the linebacking room that was very strong for them last year, receiving, I believe he was a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year, if I'm not mistaken. And then Adoree Jackson getting added in the spot of Slay, a guy you talked about earlier, JP, since going over to New York, kind of revitalized his career. That could be another, high level play, a guy that they're banking on ceiling for. This feels like Philly bringing in some project players like they normally do, and they're guys that they could turn into success stories pretty quickly.
Yeah, this is just, I mean, it's your typical Howie Roseman offseason. I mean, the Ojulari and Uche signings are, they get Uche for literally $1 million. I mean, that's a
That's
very
cr-
cheap contract.
I
It's
don't
a
know how
great
nobody else
move.
jumps in there.
I don't know what the details of Ojulari's contract was, but it's a 1 year deal, so it's a steal in any way you look at it. And then they get Adoree Jackson for 2.5 mil. I mean, it's just mind boggling that these guys sit out there and then Howie Roseman swoops in and pays them for the bare minimum. And people wonder why the Eagles are consistently good. I would bet a lot of money that the Eagles open up as the favorites to win the NFC again next year. It's just Howie Roseman it's actually insane. And it's funny because they were calling for his head after the Jalen Rager pick, and everyone just couldn't believe it that they passed on Jettas, and here we are. And now they've been to 2 Super Bowls, and Justin Jefferson hasn't won a playoff game. So
That's wild. Not only do you say favorites to the NFC, they could be favorites to win the Super Bowl, just based on how things line up. Yeah, Saquon Barkley's a stud. I tweeted it in the playoffs after he ripped off that run against Washington to get the NFC title game going. He's the best non-quarterback in the game, and it's not even close. Like, it really isn't. What he's able to do is remarkable. Getting the guys back around him, good to go. Like I said, like the DTR move, and these small contracts are going to really pay off for Philly. And these, we could be talking about, Uche Ojulari, Jackson as guys who get these massive deals next year, like a Milton Williams or other guys, based on what they do this year. And they're going to be in a big spotlight as well, playing for one of the best teams, if not the best team in the National Football League entering the season. Washington making some moves after getting the NFC title game a season ago. They bring back Marcus Mariota to back up Jaden Daniels. The big trade being for Deebo Samuel, giving up a late pick, taking on most, if not all, of that salary. Another big trade, though, they get a blindside tackle to block for Jaden Daniels and Laramie Tunsil in a trade with Houston. Dietrich Wise coming over for the defensive line, and another Bear legend, Eddie Goldman, somehow still playing football, joins the interior defensive line. JP, so much to unpack here, but obviously you look at Deebo and Laramie Tunsil. Those are the headlines that the Commanders have really gone out and taken care of. Those are the headliner players. Important to watch, and that Tunsil trade. I really like that for them. I know he's owed a lot of money, and people say what they want about him, but he's about as reliable as it can be out there.
yeah, no, they had a solid offseason. There were a couple of deals that were weird to me. I mean, they paid Javon Kinlaw $45 million, which was I don't know where they thought he was deserving of that. They also brought back. I am not even going to attempt. I mean, I'm going to attempt, but it's not going to be right. They brought back Noah
I
Igbinohene.
got you.
I've
The
never,
defensive back.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I've never known how to pronounce his name, but he's a great rotational piece. So that was a great move. I just think it's funny when you look at Javon Kinlaw, Clelin Ferrell. I mean, they just got some funny draft guys on here. But yeah, the Laramie Tunsil move was so good for them. I was so frustrated when I saw that news broke. Now, granted, he is the most penalized player in all the football league, but I mean, who cares when he's that great of a blocker? You'll take the mishaps every now and then when you're not giving up any sacks. The only thing I can celebrate is that they're gonna have a lot of money tied up in these older guys with Lattimore and Tunsil and Debo. Uh, I also thought this was funny, and I think you'll get a kick out of this. I saw that Eddie Goldman's contract, he's only guaranteed 315,000, and it's a $1.25 million deal. So thought that was a little funny, but yeah, no, a solid but not
Oh,
great
Eddie.
offseason for the Commanders. I'm so out on Deebo Samuel. He's horrible. I literally don't care what anybody says. I don't care if you told me to watch film. Deebo Samuel is horrible. I think there was one day I sent the Beaverfest group chat where I listed 56 wide receivers
Yeah.
that I thought is better than Deebo Samuel. And you know what? There were guys they left off that list. I don't even think Deebo's a top 50 receiver in the league. I don't think he's top 55. And I would go as far to say I don't think he's top 60. So take that as well. I do not like Deebo Samuel.
I'll take you a step further. You're out on Deebo. I'm out on Washington. I might be
I'm
crazy to
also out
say.
on Washington.
I think they're a flash in the pan case. We could be talking about them as a 7 to 8 win team this year. I think they pushed their chips to the center, but they pushed them to the center on the wrong guys. Like, I agree, Debo. That's not. I think there's a reason why he went for what he went for as draft compensation. Tunsil's a good move. I do like that, but I don't know, man. I just don't know. I don't know if them. I mean, obviously making the NFC title game is a good thing, but I don't know now. It's like, where do you go? You're due for regression. I talked to my one friend who's a Lions fan this past summer who was, oh, we're going to the Super Bowl, which obviously, like, you're going to have those thoughts. But I told him, like, you're going to be disappointed. I said to him, I didn't believe it when I said it to him, but I said their Lions aren't going to make the NFC title game. Now, I didn't think they'd miss it in that fashion, but it's one of those where in situations like that, you're bound for disappointment. You're bound for regression. So I'm out on Washington this year. I don't think they'll be as good. 7 wins may be a bit of a stretch. That might be drastic, but I'm not as high on them as other people might be.
I see that. I see that exact vision with you. I think they have
Yeah.
money all in the wrong places. Old players. I mean, McLaurin, Debo,
They're not getting
Lattimore,
any younger,
Tunsil.
man.
That's all the money tied up in a bunch of old guys, and I don't see it paying out for them. So I'm in the same exact boat as you. I think they'll regress as well.
There you have it. You got 2 for 2 here on Commanders' opinions. As we look to the NFC East, we are still there with the Cowboys. No running back addition, really outside of bringing in Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams. We'll talk about those two guys. They do have running back additions, but there isn't really a clear RB1. I think that's the better way to phrase it. Dante Fowler there, along with Kenneth Murray and Kyer Elam. We talked about Elam in mock draft, actually, about him being a failed Buffalo project as a defensive back. Briefly, we'll run through the Cowboys here, JP. Just, I don't know. I don't know what to make of them. They don't spend any money, so I don't really think there's much we can have to say.
No, Kenneth Murray's the worst player in the entire NFL, and it's just so Cowboys that they would bring him in. Me and Ty used to laugh because I was a big Brandon Staley supporter, and that obviously flopped horribly in LA. I thought that he was a defensive genius when they got him, and I was, oh, this is gonna bang. And they draft Kenneth Murray, and I'm like, oh, he's a fast linebacker. He's gonna be able to play off. But no, he's horrible. Then he goes to Tennessee, and Ty doesn't believe me. And nope, Ty all season. Kenneth Murray is so bad. Kenneth Murray is the worst player in the entire NFL. I'm not even exaggerating. He's the worst player in the NFL. This is such a Cowboys move. I also think it's hilarious that, of course, the Cowboys would take a shot on Kyer Elam. It's it's the same thing in at the trade deadline last year when they gave up a fourth for Jonathan Mingo, and then 6 hours later, Deontay Johnson goes for a fifth to Houston. Now, granted, Deontay Johnson didn't ever do anything again, but when we're talking about talent levels here, when do you ever put Mingo and Deontay Johnson in the same sentence? We'll be
Right.
lucky if Mingo's in the league for a second contract. It's just such a Cowboys move. What a disastrous offseason. What a disastrous franchise. Everything is wrong in Dallas. Get the Jones family out of there as soon as possible.
There you have it. No better way to put it. We'll rapid fire the Giants before we get to the NFC West. Run low on time here to close out the episode. Giants bring back Danny DeVito. Darius Slayton getting 3 years, 36 million. Shout out Mr. Luke Hunley, the true Darius Slayton truther in this league. Golston back along with Paulson Adebayo and Javon Holland. Once again, Giants they're doing what they're doing. JP, it's that sounds like I'm not don't really have words to say for them. I just don't know how you get excited about this team. There really isn't much to throw in there. They're going to have a new quarterback this year, and yeah,
Yeah, Adebayo and Holland are great defensive pickups, but I mean, nothing to really move the needle for them. They still need a quarterback. So,
and that'll get determined, obviously, hopefully through the draft. If not, I mean, Rodgers, Wilson, who knows? They are truly a team of mystery. We close out by looking at the NFC West, a pretty impactful division here in free agency, and we begin with the 49ers. Mostly departures more than anything, losing Leonard Floyd, Jordan Mason, Javon Hargrave, Malik Collins, and obviously Debo. They brought back Kyle Juszczyk after letting him go, restructuring his contract, and they signed Demarcus Robinson and Mac Jones. We like Demarcus Robinson for Bears. He gets 2 years, near 10 million. Mac Jones, the new backup quarterback, 2 year, $7 million deal. JP, I think we're seeing the window close for San Fran.
yeah, I'd fully agree. And I just, the only thing I even wanted to talk about was how we wanted Demarcus Robinson to come to Chicago as our wide receiver three. And even going back to the Giants, I thought the same thing about Darius Slayton. We miss out on both when we settle with Olamide Zaccheaus, and here we are. Yeah, I think the window's closed completely on this team. I don't think they'll be competing for an NFC title for a while, especially once they pay Brock Purdy here.
Could be seeing Christian McCaffrey on the move as well. If someone's willing to take him, that'll be the big
I saw
question.
I saw Denver is in looking at
Okay,
me, which could be fun. Could be really fun.
where his dad played, so that would be pretty cool. But yeah, this is the Niners are going to throw all their money at Purdy, and it's not going to go well for him. We kind of already can see that all the writing on the wall. The Cardinals bring in Jacoby Brissett, Dalvin Tomlinson, and Josh Sweat. We mentioned Josh Sweat, the $19 million. Good player. Once again, one of those guys from Philly getting his payday along with Milton Williams and others on the defensive side of the ball. The Cardinals are still just a really average team for me, if not maybe a little below average.
Yeah, no, I nothing that really moved the needle for me. I'm not super high on Josh Sweat. I think that was a lot of money for Josh Sweat. I think he's a product of that Philly team. I actually like the Tomlinson move a lot better. But yeah, I mean, if we're really going to talk about movers, bringing in Simi Fehoko, I really think was the move that's going to put the Cardinals
Yeah,
over the top. But no, in all
Dallas Cowboy
seriousness,
legend.
yeah, nothing really to talk about for the Cardinals. I still think they're a 8, 9, 10 win team at best.
I think the two teams from this division with the most impact this offseason, the Rams and the Seahawks. Rams losing Cooper Kupp to Seattle. We'll talk about how that all impacts things. They bring in Devontae Adams, Puna Ford, shout out Puna Ford, and Bear Center this past year. Coleman Shelton returns to the Rams on a 2-year deal. They re-signed / restructured Matthew Stafford's deal along with Tutu Atwell. This seems like once again the Rams. I mean, it's Tay Adams. Hey, you want to get younger, you cut Kupp, but you bring in an older Adams, not older, but it's still an older guy in Adams. It's a completely different player, and I think he'll work out with McVay. But I'm interested as to how this will lead.
Yeah, I'm leaning that this is going to turn out really well. I still think Adams has a lot left in the tank. I think it was suffocating playing in New York, especially with Rodgers. I think this will be a big breath of fresh air getting to play with Puka, getting to play with McVay, Stafford, who's a gunslinger and likes to force targets. I honestly wouldn't. I'm gonna call a shot now. I think Rams are playing in the NFC title game this year with a
There you
chance
go.
to go to the Super Bowl. I really like this Rams team, and
They were a
you
drive
mentioned it.
away from doing it this past year.
I love the Puna Ford. Love the Puna Ford signing. So I
Just a
actually
great
really
name.
like what the Rams did. I really like what the Rams did.
If you look at our prep sheet, I put Puna Ford exclamation point. He's
I
the only
see
guy
it.
with an
I'm looking at it
exclamation
right
point
now.
next to his name. Fun name, but yeah, really good guy in the interior and trenches on the defensive side of the ball. Our final team before we sign off for the evening, the Seattle Seahawks. A lot of losses, a lot of gains. This might be the most changing in a roster we've had in the entire league this offseason. They bring in Cooper Kupp, who was let go, as mentioned by the Rams. They have a new quarterback, Sam Darnold, getting the same contract Geno Smith did not too long ago. Marcus Lawrence coming over from Dallas, and they also get Marquez Valdez-Scantling as another option for Darnold to throw the ball to, along with Kupp and JSN. They lose Geno in a trade with the Raiders. We talked about DK getting dealt to Pittsburgh. Tyler Lockett cut loose, who I don't believe he's been picked up yet. And Draymond Jones getting let go as well to clear nearly $11 million in cap space. Holy turnover of a roster for Seattle.
Yeah, and people are looking at this the wrong way, in my opinion. I think people are looking at this as a rebuild. I think it's a retool, and I think they're
Mm-hmm.
in a better spot. I really do believe they're in a better spot. You bring in, they fire Ryan Grubb, which I was very disgruntled when they did that. I think Ryan Grubb's a great OC, and Alabama football is lucky to have him back. But then they bring in Clint Kubiak, which was even better than Ryan Grubb. And Kubiak comes from that, the Shanahan McVay, that whoever you want to claim that offense goes to. Three, and no one says anything about Kupp and Nakua being, not the same receiver, but it's not like Puka is a vertical threat or anything. So then you bring in Kupp with JSN, who's JSN isn't a vertical threat. I think people are overstating how like bad this signing is. I don't think it's bad at all to bring in
No,
Kupp. And then you
the
get,
money's
I'm
not
not
terrible
saying
either. 3 for
no,
45.
yeah, no, is a very, very, very team friendly deal for. I mean, what Kupp could claim he still has left in the tank. I think he went team friendly on him. And the other thing that I think people are really over exaggerating is sure Sam Darnold could regress. Obviously, that system in Minnesota was great. He was throwing the best receiver in football and another top 25 receiver in football, top 30 receiver, fine, whatever, with Kevin O'Connell, who's an offensive genius. Clint Kubiak's from the same system. And they get 7 years younger on the same deal. Actually, he's making 10 million less than Gino. And you get 7 years younger. I mean, for all we know, Darnold could get better. He could get better.
Yeah.
No one knows. I think people are really overshooting how bad this offseason was for Seattle. And it wouldn't shock me at all if they win the same amount. They won 10 games this year and missed
It,
the playoffs.
when they fired Grubb, I was like, man, a guy who helped your offense win 10 games, you let him go.
Insane. I think only the third time in the NFL history that a team won 10 games and missed the playoffs, or the fourth or something. But either way, I think people are overstating how bad this offseason was. It wasn't bad at all for them, or this free agency period. I keep saying offseason, but yeah, depending on what they do here at 18, if they go interior line or defense, I mean, they really don't need help on defense, but they get Darnold some protection. I think we're talking about another 10-win borderline playoff team again.
I like the retool, not rebuild phrase for Seattle as well that you mentioned out there. That'll wrap up the free agency recap. Make sure to stick around. We do have another episode coming this week without giving too much away, even though this will probably give it away. It's our first non-football related episode here on the channel, having some fun with it being the month of March. After all, we'll get our mock draft in next week. So another episode here of Just Beavin in the off season. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. We'll catch you next time.